Hello again. We're at the Cattlemen. We're excited to be sitting down today with Josh Krenz. He's the president of the American Highland Cattle Association. We're at the National Western Stock Show. We're really excited. This is our second interview with Josh. He's a wealth of information, and he's been talking to all kinds of people, and he's been willing enough to sit down with us, and we're just really honored to sit down with him today. We're going to talk to him a little bit more about who he is, kind of where he came from, how he got involved with Highland Cattle. So Josh, again, thank you so much for sitting down with us. You've been the president of the association for a year. You've been a member since 2011, and you've had Highland Cattle for a while, and you also have, you're part of a business that we'll talk about too. So Josh, if you don't mind, just introduce yourself and kind of tell us about your background with how you got started.
Yeah, so I grew up on a diversified farm in western Wisconsin, a small town called Fall Creek. It's right by Eau Claire in western Wisconsin, and we milked cows. So we had dairy cows. We were one of the small farms where we milked cows. 3 times a day we milked 50 cows.
Oh, goodness.
And then we also ran a small shorthorn herd, beef cows.
Mm-hmm.
So we had about 25 mama cows. We had registered shorthorns. Did a little bit of showing with those growing up. Did a little bit of crossbred. I wouldn't call them club calves. We were not club calf really people. We would do shorthorn crosses like shorthorn with an Angus, or we did some semi crosses as well. We did some Holstein Belgian blues as well that I showed at county fair and things. So we did that, just a diverse operation, and after that I went to the University of Wisconsin River Falls and got a degree there and kept going. Pretty much it from that aspect. And today my wife and I, we live in Princeton, Minnesota, which is about an hour north of Minneapolis, and we have 2 young children, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we're just getting them going in the farming. And we got a small operation, about 100 acres that we run on pasture, and we buy most of our hay and forage, and we maintain about 50 to 60 cattle a year.
Wow, that's great. You're not milking cows anymore then,
No,
I'm guessing?
That's actually the part why I went to school. So
Okay.
Actually, my grandpa sat me down, Grandpa Krenz, and he said, when I was a kid, if you didn't know how to do anything, you became a farmer.
Oh.
And he said, but today, if you want to be a farmer, you need to go to school and get a degree.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he encouraged me, and so I got a degree in marketing, agricultural marketing, is what I started with, and then later I went and got a master's in business to apply that to what I'm doing today.
Wow. Now it seems like today, and probably back, however long ago, as a farmer, you kind of also had to know how to do everything.
Yes.
So, especially with technology and all that today, but that's a different conversation.
Sure. It's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, so you got started with Highland Cattle. You and your wife raise Highland Cattle now. What's kind of the direction that you guys are going in with the herd that you have now?
Yeah, so when we first got into Highlands, we started like a lot of people. We started with unregistered cattle.
Okay.
So we actually bought our first Highlands in 2008.
Okay.
So I ran Highlands for a couple of years, started a grass-fed beef business, and wasn't a member of the American Highland Cattle Association. And for different reasons. And it was actually later when I met a mentor of mine in Highland Cattle that they encouraged us to get more involved in the association. Growing up on the dairy farm, I was really big into AI. And on the farm with dairy cattle, everything we did was AI, and there's big breeding companies that you do mating for the bull for each cow, right? Each cow gets its own separate bull, and they have actually the company that we used growing up was called Accelerated Genetics in western Wisconsin. And when I was a kid, I wanted to grow up and be an AI tech. Like that was my goal, right?
Sure.
I thought he had the coolest job ever.
Yeah.
He'd come out, they'd bring in a person from the company, and they would score and rate every single cow in the barn and look at it and say, this cow, based off of its traits that you want to improve on and what strengths it has, it should be mated to this bull here. So when I went from having grass-fed, non-registered cattle, and one of the Highland cattle, one of the issues I found was they're kind of slow growing, right? A lot of people say, well, Highlands will grow slow.
Sure.
Well, also, even within the Highland cattle, there's a genetic diversity in the population that sometimes slow means 24 months for a grass-fed Highland steer, and sometimes it means 36. That is still a lot of variation. So I was fascinated by the variation and started to say on our farm I wanted to make improvements on that. The first thing that we could do to improve that was we upgraded our mama cows. We went and bought registered, ACA registered mama cows that we now, had on our farm. And then the next thing that we started to look at upgrading on was we started to use AI. And same concept of I had when I was a kid on the dairy farm, and we did this with the shorthorn beef too, is my job was to try to marry up which bull for which cow, and having a tank, a liquid nitrogen tank full of AI straws of different Highland bulls allows me to do that versus having a single bull. Single bull, and a bull you could argue is your most influential part of your genetics on your farm. But having a single bull on a farm, let's say you had 20 cows, not every 20 cows should be bred to that bull because of different traits that you have. Now, if you only have a choice of having a bull, then you should spend the money and buy the best bull you possibly can, right? I see a lot of times in the Highland breed where we skimp on bulls. Now, you want to take it a step further to breed for whatever your characteristics are that you're looking for, what your goals are for your farm. We have bulls for that in the breed. We have a diverse set of bulls across the breed. And if you're out here, you said we're out at the national, Denver stock show, you go around, you talk to people, you watch the bulls in the ring, you see how they move, you see the ultrasound scores here out in Denver when we look at ribeyes and we look at different things, and you start to say, is that the bull that I want on my operation? And one of two things, you want to find a bull like that, or buy that bull if that's all you can do is buy the best bull, or in a lot of cases, a lot of those bulls will have semen available at some point, or they're out of progeny of other bulls who have semen available. And so because we don't have a semen directory of bulls in the ACA organization like I had growing up with the dairy cattle that says, here's all your characteristics and here's what cow you should mate them with, you have to do a lot more talking, or you have to find a company or somebody who has taken the time to kind of break that down and for you kind of take some of the questions out of, okay, so I've heifers, I need a bull that I can use on heifers. What does that mean, right? You need lower birth weights, what does that mean? I need animals that grow faster. Like in my case, the reason that we started doing it was to get animals to grow faster for our grass-fed beef program. I can tell you by looking at the genetic lines, and so can a lot of other people in this breed, if you talk to enough people, that will say this genetic line, they're just faster growing. I mean, we saw that yesterday in the show ring in the class that we were in. Our bull was 190 pounds bigger than other things in the class.
Wow.
And that's not because he's on a show feed, because most of those bulls are on a show ration in there.
Right.
It's because of those genetics, and we've studied those genetics to try to reach, that was what our goal. Some people they would say that's not their goal, right? Yeah. They want something that isn't going to grow as fast, or maybe it doesn't have as big a carcass and so forth. So.
Wow, so you guys are offering that service to people then that are looking for specific genetics.
Yeah, well, what we did, Seth, and so we started a company called Highland Genetics. So my farm is Windland Flats. I have a business partner, Bruce Schmitz. He's Back to the Roots Farm. And, I had spent all this time, just like some other really good breeders had, in doing our own research and talking to a bunch of different people, right? I can remember in 2011 when I started looking for semen, I just called everybody, right? And you called and you almost went down the membership list and were like, do you have semen? Do you have semen? And tell me everything you can about this bull, and do you have any data on that bull? And so it was really hard. And so after having done it for really 10 years, we started Highland Genetics in 2021. We said, well, let's just take all of that concerted information and let's try to make it easy for new people. What we're really targeting is we're really helping new people. It's not to say that we can't help other people with semen and AI and so forth, but most of the people that we work with are brand new to the breed, don't know where to get semen, and even if they knew where to get semen, they wouldn't know which bull to use on their cows. So we'll literally have conversations with people and do kind of more of a consulting. and say, hey, what genetics do you have? That's where buying ACA registered cattle comes in, is because now we know the genetics.
Yeah.
So having used a lot of different kinds of genetics in the breed, when we're looking at those cows, I can say, okay, so if you're looking at this kind of cow, this cow family tends to have these characteristics generally, right? Because we don't have, EPDs in this breed and that type of thing like you would with other breeds. So we're making generalizations, but the generalizations that we're making based off of our years of experience of having tried to do it ourselves is better than not having any recommendations at all.
Wow.
And then on the other part of that, the customers that we work with continue to feed back information to us, and we continue to be able to help other people with more information.
So that's so interesting, because we started out with an unregistered cow, and like you said, so if you're looking to go down that road where you're wanting to raise quality animals, where their genetics are coming from, buying from the association, like you said, is really the best place to do that, because you can look back on those genetics. It's interesting the way it's just really well said how you explained all that, because it really does start at what animal do you have and what genetics, what history do you have for that animal. And if you're buying an unregistered stock, there's nothing wrong with it, but you're not going to be able to find that type of success.
You won't get the success as quickly, and you may never get the success at all, even if you can, because you won't have that genetic pedigree background. So you wouldn't know what bulls would be good to breed it to.
You're just kind of guessing and testing.
You're guessing,
yeah.
Right? And so what we're trying to do, there's a difference between being a breeder and just being someone that wants a backyard pet, right? And as someone who has cattle, right, they're a domestic creature, it is our job to steward them and be breeders. And that means in order for us to maintain the integrity of the American Highland cattle, we have to make sure that we're doing our best, and doing our best means use the tools that are available. Making sure that we're buying good registered cattle, buy the best you can afford. Well, what does that mean? You got to look at the genetics, know what they are. If you don't know what they are, talk to somebody who's been around for a while. Build those mentorships with people who have experience with different breeds and different cow families. Come out to stock show and talk to lots of people. Call up your neighboring Highland breeders and talk to them, or call a company like us, right? We're not the only company in this breed that does this. I'll say that too. This is not a commercial, right? But we're just saying that we all have so much to learn from each other in the breed. You just need to find the people you want to learn from.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. Very interesting. So obviously you have a lot of knowledge when it comes to everything you just said. I'm not going to try to repeat it all, but can you talk to us a little bit about artificial insemination, and just explain to the listeners kind of the basics? I know it's a big question for probably a lot of new breeders, even people that have had animals for a while. Maybe they just have one bull or whatnot, and they're thinking about AI. Can you explain kind of the basics of that for us?
Sure. Yeah, we talked about the benefits. You can use a lot different genetics and so forth, but to get into it, one of the first things that you have to be able to do is be able to handle your cattle, right? Because the bull process is easy. You put the bull out in the pasture and he takes care of his job, right? That's the easy part of it. Even if you're doing that, I hope you're doing a bull soundness exam on your bull every year to make sure that he's still in breeding condition, or else you could go a full year without having calves too. So just having a bull out there is still not bulletproof. You still need to test him to make sure that he's good every year, because things like heat, stress, cold, freezing, he can affect that bull or affect that bull's ability to breed. So that's my commercial on make sure if you got a bull, you check it so you don't go a year without calves.
Yep.
Right.
On the artificial insemination part, so step one is make sure that you have good handling facilities to be able to do that, so that they're safe for you and they're safe for your AI technician, because that's the next thing. And so this is probably the most common question I get is, okay, so I understand how mating works, right? I understand the semen has to get into the cow. Like, you know, we can get into that, or we can do that a whole nother podcast and I'll have visual aids and the whole thing, right? You know, we can do that, right?
We'll do
Sex
it
ed for
live.
Highland Cows 101, right? But from an AI standpoint, you know, it's not something that you can just do, right? You can't just order up semen, have it shipped to you, and you just do it. It actually takes people who are trained on how to artificially inseminate cattle, right? And so within a given area, there's AI techs all over the United States. They generally are around big dairies or beef operations, because those types of things do AI. And so usually I tell people to check with their neighboring farms if you don't know where one is. We do a lot of work to help people find AI techs in their area.
Okay.
So that's kind of step one, is finding an AI tech. Then step two is working with that AI tech to work on their schedule to make sure that they can get set up and comfortable coming to your place. You have safe facility for them to come through, because not everybody's comfortable with horns. So you want your AI tech to have a good experience, because they may be the only one in your area. And if you decide you want to keep doing AI, you want to make sure they have a good experience.
Keep them happy, yeah.
And for them to come out, they may want you to do what's called a synchronization protocol. So a synchronization protocol is changing the estrus cycle of the cow to make the cow come in heat at a time that is convenient for us. That's what it is. It's convenient for us. The cow doesn't care, right? The cow could care less when she gets bred. We care, and we care because of the AI technician's schedule.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, if you have more than one cow to breed at your farm, it's more efficient and timely if you can get that AI tech to come out at one time and breed 3 cows versus coming out, oh, I had one in heat today, oh, I got one in heat next week. Now, if you had an AI tech that drives past your farm every day to service a larger farm, they might do that. But now you have to understand how to do heat detection. So heat detection, when the cow is in estrus and it comes into heat, is when you need to be breeding it. And you need to be able to contact your AI tech within a certain hour period of time. Usually it's a 12-hour rule. If you see your cow come into standing heat, which means that one cow is riding another cow, and generally the first cow, back to visuals, the first cow isn't moving, right? In that case, then 12 hours later you would breed that cow.
Okay.
You know, so that's how it works. In AI synchronization, we've created that period where we know when all those cows should be in standing heat, or if cows don't show standing heat, because not all cows do. Not all cows naturally show heat. Sometimes it's just a little change in attitude is all you see.
Oh.
Or they're very smart and they'll only show heat at night when no one's around.
Yeah.
So you can use other tools. There's patches you can put on the tail head that when one cow mounts another cow, it usually rubs off, and it's a fluorescent color usually that comes up with it. The other thing that you can do is, in a synchronization protocol, is you can use different hormones to then make that cow come into heat, or to finish it with GnRH to make that cow ovulation take place when you are AIing it. And those are all things, it kind of sounds complex and scary for a little bit, but there are people across the United States that do this for a living. And they want to work with cattle people like us and help them out. And so they're willing to, most AI technicians are willing to help new breeders, and they'll even sometimes come out and do the synchronization for them.
Okay.
As long as you have good handling facilities to allow them to safely do that.
Okay. And maybe even if they come out and start that process, maybe those breeders, you know, after a while can kind of catch on and learn the secret to sync them up on their own, and then maybe save a little bit of money in turn, and just have the tech come out and just do the AI work then? Is that an option?
Yeah, that's an option. And the other thing is, sometimes veterinarians also do this as well. You know, so if it's an AI tech that's teaching you how to do it, it also might be your veterinarian teaching you how to do it as well. And some of the drugs that you use in this process are also prescriptions, so you may need a veterinarian relationship anyways.
Okay.
So that kind of depends on, you know, what your stance is on synchronization and the use of different hormones, as well as the recommendations of your local AI technician based off of, in some cases it might be regional factors and things like that. Because there are things in AI, like stress is bad. Like if you're going to AI, stress is bad in creating pregnancy in general.
Sure.
You know, so like in our part of the world where we're at, we tend to AI our cattle in late May, early June, rather than the 4th of July when it's 100 degrees and 95% humidity.
Yep.
Wow.
Because your conception rate goes way down with stress because body temperature of the animal goes down and the animal says, I don't want to be pregnant right now. So those are all things talking to somebody local would help you out. And then the next question will be like, how do I get semen, right?
Right.
You know, how does that process work?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a lot to know, but you're covering a lot at the same time. So it's a good place to start. But maybe seeking out somebody a regional farm,
Yep.
or a vet would be that next step.
Yes.
Talk to them and get a little bit more information based on where you're living, what's required of your veterinarian, so on and so forth.
Exactly. And this is where we talk about mentorship a lot within the Highland breed. This is where mentorship with other cattle people comes in, right? So you don't have to have a Highland person in your area doing AI tech stuff or working with AI in order to be your mentor. You can reach out to other cattle people. So every state has a cattlemen's association, right? If you don't know the neighbor up the street, and those local resources, cattlemen's, extension agents, they have resources and tools to teach you how to do AI as well. So this is not unique to the Highland breed. Every breed of cattle does AI. So, you know, you can reach out to other local resources, especially if you don't have other Highland breeders in your area.
Okay, great. And you mentioned earlier too, possibly contacting the association, the American Highland Cattle Association. They might be able to put you in contact with somebody as well.
Yeah, so the American Highland Cattle Association, we have on our website, there's a list of semen that is for sale. And so that's a good place to start with people that are selling semen, right?
Okay.
Because those people can talk to the things like what we're talking about. Second thing, if you call the office, they'll put you in touch with somebody like me or somebody in a regional area that is already doing AI if we know about it.
Okay.
And so that way we can find you a local mentor to be able to kind of teach you the ropes when it comes to AI for Highland cattle.
Okay, great. That's probably where we would have started if we would have known that was something we could find out from the association. So that's really good. I know when we first started out with cattle, we could have used some mentorship when it came to AI work, and I think there were things that we did that I absolutely would have done differently if I would have known, that there's more help out there. So that's really good to know.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll help some people out down the road. So Josh, this is your second interview that you've done with us. We've already picked your brain a lot. I feel like we could sit down with you for the rest of the year and just keep picking your brain. But when we first sat down with you for your first interview, I asked what was some advice that you had for new breeders. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. You already gave an answer in that episode, but is there anything else that you would pass on to new breeders that are listening today? I mean, it could be anything, about Highland cattle or just cattle in general, or
Sure. I think the second piece, last time we talked about handling equipment and so forth, I think the second thing that I would tell people to do is just buy the best cattle you can afford. Because, I mean, we've all talked about it, like you guys started with a grade cow, we started with grade animals and so forth, and in all of those cases, we've switched them out, right? Because we learned, we didn't know what we didn't know. So do some research, but then buy the best animals that you can afford, right?
Sure.
I'm not saying go buy the most expensive animal out there. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying buy the best animal you can afford, and I'd rather have you buy less than more, right?
Quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity. And when you're starting off, some people would think, oh, well, it's just as easy to raise 10 as it is to say 1. I would say, no, I think you should start with 3, right? instead of starting with 10. So start smaller, learn, make mistakes fast, learn quickly, and go from there. That would be my advice.
Man, that's good advice. Make mistakes fast. Get them out of the way.
That's what you want to do. And talk to other people to learn from their mistakes.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with this podcast too, is like, let's help. I mean, I just feel like we jumped so many hurdles and made mistakes, and I hear other people talk about that all the time. And it's like, man, if we could just get some more information out there, get people like you to pass along that knowledge, maybe help out some newer breeders and maybe avoid some mistakes, but at the same time, that's kind of how we learn also. So
Yeah.
I want to have a whole episode just on all the mistakes that have been made. And just like a compilation of
Yeah.
just people talking about their mistakes. And it's like, don't do this, I did this, it was horrible, did not work out well, would not recommend.
yeah, all mistakes episode, but no solutions.
Yeah, we
You're on your own.
have no advice, just like
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
do this.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Josh, thanks again so much for sitting down with us. It's exciting to be here at the stock show with you and the association and everybody else here. So we're looking forward to the banquet tonight, and let's go and enjoy it. And thanks again for sitting down with us. We really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. And thank you guys for your leadership on the podcast. We appreciate it.
Thank you. We really appreciate the support. There's been a lot of support. So, man, thank you.